Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Crystal Tower Radio. Spoiler alert. Today with me we have Cala.
Hello.
Claude is finally
Hello.
back.
I'm back.
And Jack.
Hello.
Yeah, Claude's back, everybody. He has recovered from his
Yay.
grievous injuries.
Yes, my face works again.
Your face works again.
Hope-
I'm glad
hopefully
you have a
learned your
working
lesson.
face.
Me too.
Oh, man. So I have a question. Can we talk spoilers now?
Yes.
Since
Yes.
since New Year's Day when everybody went nuts on Twitter with all their spoilering, I think it's now fair game for us.
We're
At least on here.
exactly 2 months from the release of early access, right? It was December 6th.
I believe so. No, the third or the 6th? Yeah, it might have been the 6th. Hang on, let me.
Okay, so either way, we're like roughly or exactly 2 months from early access beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is. Yeah, I think it's now a safe time to be able to. Yeah, it was the December 3rd is when it went into early
cool.
access. So yeah, we are 3 months removed.
2 months.
And time is a construct, Claude. That's all I can say about that. Coming up soon, we have the Valentine's Day stuff that starts on Tuesday, and then a week from Friday, we have our new live letter.
I can't wait.
You can't wait.
This will be
Well-
6.1 stuff, right?
Yes.
That's
and
what I'm hoping for.
I'm hoping that they'll give us a preview of what Ishgardian housing looks like. And hopefully they've made progress on the islands, so we can see what it looks like.
So you can have your Animal Crossing and eat it too.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Your Switch might be losing a cartridge slot, or might be gaining an empty cartridge slot finally.
Or I would be gaining precious the micro SD spot.
Right.
Space. Yes.
God, can you imagine how much crafting stuff is going to go up whenever that island stuff all comes together? Crafters
You
are going to make so
know-
much money.
No, actually. So before, like, we're talking expansions before, I used to make a lot of money off of furnishings. And now you have to either be like really on the ball, like first thing, or just pray that there are not a lot of crafty folks out there, or there's a whole bunch of lazy folks out there, because I have not made that much money as I had before off of crafted furnishings.
Over the course of 6.0 so far?
Over the course of 5.0 to
Oh
6.0.
wow, so this has been a thing for a while.
Yes.
Well, that kind of, yeah, it does become a race to the bottom once everybody starts getting to things. I mean, I got one of the crystals from the EX Heidelin fight, and I've just been watching that precipitously drop as more and more people are getting clears.
Oh,
Yes.
darn.
Oh, darn.
I wonder how. I wonder how much the actual like crafted barding sells over the crystal to see if it's worth just like making the barding and then reselling the barding.
Mm-hmm. That's true as well. There is kind of a utility situation where if it's the final product, then, obviously more expensive than the materials to craft it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what else have you guys been up to in-game so far?
Well-
Okay.
Let's say, Cala, go ahead.
So I finished my crafters and I finished pentamelding most of my gear. So I decided that I was gonna finally start leveling things, and I've been switching back and forth trying to find out which one I wanted to actually focus on. So for a while I was working on all of my tanks and I had them all at 82. And then I'm like, maybe it's not such a good idea because I'm barely making progress. So I decided I'm going to just pick the one I like the least and work on that until I get it to 90 and then work on the others. So it was a toss-up between Paladin and Dark Knight. and I decided to go with Paladin first because to me that was the most boring. So
Oh no.
yeah, I mean it's
What do you not like about Paladin? Or what makes it boring to you?
what makes it boring to me. So Gunbreaker is like a DPS class, and Warrior is like a DPS class, and Dark Knight,
It's also like a DPS class.
yes, and Paladin just isn't. Paladin is a tank, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I'm just trying to get everything to 90, really, and so
Hmm.
trying to. I'm not actively looking to play with other people. There's people who invited me, and I'm like, no thanks. And I'll just do fates and trusts on my own because I really want to get those leveled too.
That makes
So,
sense.
yeah.
Claude, what are you up to?
Well, I'm also trying to level all my jobs to 90. Right now I'm on Reaper. I finished Dragoon. I finished Monk. So I'm doing the melee DPSs first, not including Ninja. Ninja will be when I do the ranged. Get that because they're all at 80. I'm gonna jump over to the tanks next and do the tanks. But Cala's right. Like so, I now this is my bias going all the way back to 2.0, was that whenever you had to level Gladiator to get Warrior, Gladiator does significantly less damage than Marauder does, and or at least it was back in 2.0. So Gladiator felt so boring because you were doing just like so much less damage, and you're like, ugh. So you were just like, okay, well this is a slog, so I'm never gonna play this class. But in also 2.0, it was like the tank to have. Like you couldn't, you didn't, people didn't want warriors in their party because the mitigation for tank was just, or for paladin was just so much better.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember those days.
but yeah, so I've always just carried this thing around that like Paladin's boring, but Paladin's definitely going to be either the next job I level. Actually, yeah, it's going to be the next job that I level. And then finish Dark Knight and then Gunbreaker before moving on to either the casters or no, it'll be healers. I'll jump to healers next after that.
Ooh, joining the healer train finally.
Yep, and then we are. Well, I mean, we'll get to what we're doing there, but I got my first crafter up to 90. It was also my first crafter up to 80. Woodworking, carpentry. It's woodworking. And
Carpentry.
is it carpentry? I'm sorry. I've been
Hmm.
playing Project Zomboid with some friends, so I can't remember what the skill was called because there's so many others like crafting stats in there too.
Yeah, the class is
And
carpenter.
okay, so Carpenter. I got Carpenter to 90, and it turned out like it was like really easy to level crafters because until you get to 80, like you can just like pick a collectible. Basically from like 55 on, you can pick a single collectible and just grind that for like 15 levels. And then you move on to, and then you're like, so I could take like the first collectible I could make, get to like 65, pick like the 62 collectible, grind that up to like 74, pick the 72 one, grind that up to 80, and then 80 they like hack off the experience at the end. They're like, no, you can't do that anymore. So then you have
No
to
more
pick
of
an
that.
8, yeah. So then you have to pick an 80 collectible and then make it work from there.
Interesting. I finally got it so that now I have at least one class of each, like one tank, one healer, one DPS over 90. So I've got my Dark Knight at 90, my healer for White Mages at 90, and Bard and Machinist are both at 90. Um, I gotta say, like, hearing Rayo tell me about, like, Ray DPS for Bard being better than Machinist, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, and I don't know where I'm screwing it up, and it's driving me nuts.
Just got those bad dice.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing because I did the Stone Sky Sea one day for Savage 1, and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. First one attempt, I failed with like 8 seconds left. Second attempt, I cleared with 15 seconds left. Third attempt, I cleared with 20 seconds left. So having that kind of variance is just, I don't like that inconsistency. So I've kind of just been working on Machinist a bit more and getting a better rotation on that. So I've
Yep.
been doing some
Yep.
Hydaelyn EX for practice the other night, and I was just like, yeah, these numbers feel more consistent for me. And getting that fight down feels pretty good. Now it's on to Savage, I guess, huh?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Af-
That's the next
After
thing
you
we're gonna talk
guys
about.
after you guys bullied me into Savage participation.
What about Jack? What have you been up to?
Uh-oh, his audio
What
sounds
have
a
you
bit
been up
messed
to,
up.
Jack?
Aw, Jack, come on, get in here. M- Moving on then.
Okay. Um. So
So
yeah.
yeah,
So Savage.
EX
So
Savage
we're
fights.
so Matt, Cala, and I will be jumping into Savage. For the first time since, have we done any Savage? Did we do Alexander?
I did a tiny, tiny bit of Alexander and I couldn't hack it at the time, but that was also, baby
I
skills level
did.
in this game, so
Yeah, and I think I did a little bit of Omega, Savage. Cal, when was the last time you did Savage?
Uh, you know, uh,
Well, so we're all a little rusty when it comes to Savage, and we're all about to just
Eden.
like,
I did it in Eden.
did you?
The last tier of Eden, yes.
Okay.
was it like
So
that traumatizing for you? You sound like you don't even want to talk
No,
about it.
no, I don't know. No, it wasn't traumatizing. It's just that I I'm always upset with myself because I feel like, oh, I could do better. And I feel like I haven't. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to hold people back. I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be like that. And it's just like always on my head. I can't get it out. But apparently someone wanted to keep me on. So, and I would have stayed on if it weren't for timing and other stuff. Like it's a commitment and it's really fun. I really like doing Savage. It's just full time work, going to school, and all of that makes for a very tired Calla.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the main reason I haven't done it before with Ernest is just because like the timing just is very difficult for me. Like 9 to 5 plus anything else that I have externally going on. Like getting busy people all together for like a one small window a week or twice a week just seems like really, really hard to do. And especially to do that consistently at a high level. So I understand the trepidation. It's going to be interesting. I'm hopeful that we can get some clears going starting this week.
yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I'm very excited to do Savage with you guys. That's been my biggest motivating factor, is I don't have a lot of personal motivation to do Savage by myself. I would rather experience that with people that I like, people that I enjoy playing the game with, and then that's the motivation to try and tackle the harder obstacles. Like I like clearing EX fights with you guys. Like if it was just me by myself, I wouldn't have cleared EX fights, and I like doing this stuff with you guys, and so that's why that we're doing this is so we can do it together.
Is this where you say Ohana means family?
I mean, I wasn't going to say that. I'm white, so I wasn't going to culturally appropriate
I like
things like that.
Ohana.
There we go.
Stitch is my favorite. I love Stitch.
Yeah. Basically, I'm in the same boat where it's like I really don't want to do like I'll do Party Finder if like I need something, like need like a certain someone in our FC will do Savage content on their own. I know who
Yes.
they are.
But they have balls that are bigger than medicine balls. That are bigger than yoga balls. I mean, they're like so big they could crush the earth. I mean,
Oh my god.
That's really graphic and expressive. Good
You
thing
should
that
see a
you
doctor.
ditched.
You should probably
Yeah,
see a doctor.
that sounds like a medical problem. And also
no,
it's
not
a good thing. It's a good thing we dropped the content warning.
Mm-hmm.
it's metaphorical, you know?
Oh, it's a metaphor. Okay, gotcha. Ah, it's gonna be a good time. I guarantee it. We'll talk about it next time. We'll let you all know how this goes. I'm sure it's gonna go swimmingly.
Yes, I'm sure as long as, you know, we get call outs, call outs.
And call outs.
Yes, they don't need to subtweet me. I
Not
understand.
sub.
I'm having a problem calling out things consistently
Not only
in
that, but like
fights because
markers.
I'm not running as warrior. If I was running as warrior, like I wouldn't even have to look at my hotbar just because like it's all muscle memory at this point. But I'm running as samurai in EXs and Savage for our static, and I'm still not used to like there's a lot more buttons, so I'm not used to like the rotation like from a complete mental standpoint where I could do it in my sleep. So like I'll catch myself trying to look at my hotbar to make sure I'm on track, and then I look up and like a cast bar's already halfway full, or like Matt's already calling out something because I'm not saying anything. So I need to get better of paying attention to mechanics first, rotation second, because while it's good to make sure that I'm doing as much damage as possible, it doesn't help if people are dead from mechanics that I didn't call out. So I need to do better on callouts. So I need to learn the fights inside and out, and practice calling things out. That way I know. That way I that way it's instinctual for me to call out in the fight.
Right. That kind of reminds me. One of the things that we were kind of screwing up in the Heideland fight when we were doing it the other night, we had Group 1 and Group 2 for splitting the healers. Group 2, we could have slid closer to the start point of where the subparhelion shoots out. Like, there's no reason to stand halfway in between the two. You should
Hmm.
always stand closer to the one that's going to fire off first.
Yeah, and
And in
that's if you're
doing
standing
so,
further
you
back.
run less. Yeah, exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah,
Our
which is what we were doing before, and that's where I kept getting clipped, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
you
You're
know
just
what
not
helps
making it to the
prevent
other
that
side
too as
fast
well.
enough.
No, like so when I was doing it with just randos, one of the things we had was a summoner, or no, not a summoner, scholar, and that is one of those times where using the movement buff is actually really helpful.
Oh,
Yeah, like we were able to sprint across, like without actually having to pop sprint, you get across
yeah.
just fine without any issues.
Hmm.
Well, that sounds very useful.
Yeah, up there in the corner when you're up in
Utility.
melee. Yeah, when you're up in melee range, it's just like you just go straight over. Like I haven't been clipped once going over from that side.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, that's I've had a lot of fun in EX fights outside of that last trip because we definitely advertised that for that one healer that joined, that poor healer. We were like, hey, weapon farm, but there might be some mistakes, and then we literally went the entire time without a clear.
Oops. Between
Oops.
the two fights, which ones do you guys enjoy more?
I want to say Zodiark, but I think it's Heidelin just because I think Heidelin's mechanics are less wild and more predictable. Um,
But they
the
require a bit more precision.
Yes, but the problem with Zodiark is that when so you have to watch for which direction he's rotating it, and then if he
Hmm.
has snakes on the field, then you have to look at where the snakes are, and then you have to determine, how their rotation changes where the safe spot is, and trying to think about that on the fly while also trying to make sure that you're getting your rotation off can be a little annoying, especially when you're the one doing the call outs. So that was the kind of the issue that we had was that I was I was freezing a second, trying to think about, okay, which way's the thing rotating? How does that affect the fire stream across the middle? And how does that affect with the snakes? And so that's what makes Zodiark a little more difficult, is that his mechanics can be a little more wild.
Hmm.
I I prefer Zodiark because at least then I know where the quadrants are. I get so like, and at least he stays where he's at. Whereas when you nudge Heidelin a bit, and then the whole thing is just fucked, and I'm like looking at the marks, I'm looking at where she is, and then I'm like, I don't know if I'm standing in the right place, and then I'll get clipped, and I'm like, fuck my life.
So what I've noticed from doing Highland is so long as she is kept middle and always like north and south, everything else is really predictable. Like you don't have to
Yes.
worry about the um, the cardinal cleaves. Like just keep her right there, like just centered facing north, and you really shouldn't have any problem throughout the fight. At least during the phases where she's not moving around like during the crystals phase.
I agree.
Light
The
waves.
problem,
Oof.
the problem is if they don't keep them north and south.
Yeah, then it all goes wild. Although
Well,
at
Yes.
least with
the light
aerials,
waves mechanic is like the light waves mechanic is always the same. So for
yes.
me, it's really easy because you're always going to do the exact same thing every time. It's either going to
Hmm.
be either to the left side or the right side, as compared to Zodiarc's mechanics.
Right. Well, Zodiarc's mechanics actually get a bit easier if you kind of think about the snakes in quadrants on the field. Like if you were able to think of it as just, four squares, and then just think of the snakes like they're always going to affect a certain part of like each square. And then like you kind of shrink it down and then it becomes a little bit easier to conceptualize. So instead of thinking about two snakes, you're only really thinking about one snake. Or does that not make any sense?
I would have to visualize that
Yeah, that's always the hard part is like just visualizing things.
and processing it in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of EX fights and savage stuff, remember Omega? Omega's
Yes.
back in glamour form.
Oh
Ugh.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it
Ugh.
looked good. I don't think it looked. I didn't think it looked good on the boss. Don't think it looks good on the characters.
It
It
looks
looks
terrible.
looks super specific. Like so there's like a handful of people that are like, oh yeah, this is just what I needed for my glamour, and then other people are just gonna be like, okay, I'm not gonna pay for that. Thanks though.
It
Yeah, I
looks like
don't like how,
BDSM gear.
but like worse. And even then, like on
Well,
Lala's, it,
yes.
it looks like it looks so bad on Lala's. I don't know. I don't know who that's really for. Ugh, please
Yeah,
don't.
like glamours that like accentuate like you know sexual features look terrible on Lalafels. Just straight up.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes, they
please
do.
don't do that ever again. What else is going on? We have the soundtrack coming soon,
Very
later
excited
this
about that.
month.
Very excited to listen to Close in the Second over and over again,
You mean
which is
Close in the
already something.
Distance?
Yeah, that's what I meant. What did I said Close in the Second, didn't I?
You did.
Man,
Yes.
words
You
are
had that.
hard. Close in the Distance,
I was about
which
to
is
say,
the
why
best
isn't
track.
it the best track in the soundtrack?
I think close in the second sounds way better
Okay, so
already.
flow is actually the best is the actually the best track. But I really like I know that some people don't like it. Specifically, you folks in the last episode didn't like it. Or at least didn't think it was as good as the hype around it is. I think it's really good, and I really enjoy it. So I have no problem sitting in Ultima Thule and listening to it like over and over. I actually have it. So I've got the wallpaper engine for on Steam, and I actually have an Ultima Thule like background with the music running.
Oh, that's cool. Like,
Why
I
would you torture
love,
yourself?
because it's a good song. I love Close in the Distance. Like, the only thing is, I haven't done the fate trains for Chi, so I can't really say I've suffered it the same way a lot of people have. But I think it's just like the lyrics and the song itself, just really really good. And I really like the more orchestral version that you get from Dead Ends. Like I think they probably could have swapped, like they could have done a little bit more variety with it. Like you could have started with like the vocal version of Close in the Distance maybe in the dungeon,
Yeah.
but But I get
It
that, like, for story purposes, it goes along with what's happening as you're going through the
Hmm.
zone.
I do empathize with the fact that like the track is the same in the entire zone, and
Hmm.
I know that some people would like the option to switch it back. I kind of think that the best idea is just um, to fade it in and out as it actually did in those specific areas of the zone. So whenever you're in the
Hmm.
first zone, it's what it was, and then as you progress, so like if you go up to right outside the dungeon, that's when you've got the vocal version, and then the rest of it just kind of like comes in.
Yeah, I would. I could see that being good. Like, I'm perfectly fine if it would actually just loop through all three versions. I think it should be able to do that. Or at least there
But
should be like a soft option for you to be able to set. Although that would be really weird, like to have one singular option in the options menu to say like, "Hey, this is how I want Ultimate Tool to play."
yeah, but the easiest solution would have been to make the track longer. Like the track itself is less than 2 minutes long, so it's like a minute 30, minute 40 to get through the entire song before it loops again, and that's just too short for when you're playing in a game for background music. And
Yeah.
so if they had made it a full like track, if it had been like a 2.5 minute, closer to 3 minute track where you had like either multiple choruses or multiple verses or something like that to actually like make it more robust, then I don't think people would nearly have the problem that they have with it. It's just that they're hearing the same thing over and over and over again in such a short amount of time that I think that
Hmm.
that was what causes animosity towards the track rather than appreciation for the track.
I can only hear so many tales of loss and fire and grapes.
Also,
no.
speaking of misunderstanding tracks, they're definitely leaning into the fact that we made it big fat tacos for Ruby. Like they know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, they
They
totally
they
do.
know they know that we make that joke, and they leaned into it, especially for the final fight, the final trial. Um, when so whenever that kicks in, you're like, okay, they used like they did because big fat tacos isn't as apparent in the Ultima weapon fight. So
No,
that
not at all.
track, it's not there. It only showed up in a Ruby weapon and then subsequent iterations of that. So like they could have gone back to Ultima weapon and like taken out the joke, but no, they left it in. They're like, nah, they sing it every time it comes up. So we're just gonna leave this in.
I appreciate that. It's funny too because I was doing Dunsky once, and I was just like, "Wait a minute, Proto Ultima. I hear big fat tacos, but it's just slower." Oh, now I get it. And I felt like the biggest moron when that happened. But I also had to call it out in the raid, and somebody was just like, "You know what? Fuck you." I was like, "Rude. Sorry that I ruined it for you, I guess."
Oh, I mean, were people really that attached to those specific lyrics? Big Fat
I don't know.
Tacos is like fun. Like I if it wasn't for Big Fat Tacos, I wouldn't like care about that track. Like it sounds good, but like as soon as like the song kicks in, the Ruby Weapon version of it, you're like Big Fat Tacos, and you're just like I just every time I can't help
You're
but
so
sing it.
hype.
Yeah.
That's just like the. I mean, even the end singer, like that. That fight gets really hype once the music kicks in. Like
Oh my
that
gosh.
whole
Yeah.
medley of tracks is just so good, and I
Oh
love it
yeah.
so much.
Yeah. It's really good. I love.
I cannot wait for the EX version of that fight.
Oh, it's gonna be so wild. It's gonna be great. The Endsinger fight, I really enjoyed that. The music, the mechanics, even though the mechanics were somewhat similar to Zodiac, like they had like some not mirrors, but similarities.
Hmm.
But like I really really enjoyed that. And then the win mode at the end when footfalls kicks in, like that's like
Yeah.
really good and like just the whole fight just felt really good.
I mean, now that we're free to talk about spoilers, is there
Yeah.
anything in particular like about the story that really resonated with any of you? Cala.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, while you're
I know
thinking,
Ellie. I was gonna say I know Ellie, one of our listeners. She was really struck by a lot of the kind of maternal stuff, especially when the abomination started happening and was getting the kids.
Ooh.
Like that hit her hard. She was just like, nope, not a fan of any of this.
Ooh, interesting.
And I
Um,
totally see that, like from a maternal point of view, that like makes sense that like seeing something like that would just like drive you nuts. Or not like
but
nuts, but
well,
like just like but like would
like
sting.
yeah,
It
would have
has
a
it
yeah
has a
that
very
would have
specific sting to it.
yeah. So like I think that they probably counted on that to some degree because you wouldn't put something like that in a game if you didn't want a visceral response to it. Um,
Right. Like
for
like the visceral reaction to what's her name transforming in Holminster Switch.
oh yeah, exactly. Well before that, it was before the dungeon.
Right.
Um, the for me it was the deconstruction of nihilism. Um,
Hmm.
because I just think that it's something that a lot of people have dealt with these last couple of years, and I think that the ultimate message of hope against the fight the message in the dead ends and from Medion and everything like that it just felt good to have that reinforcement of like you just got to keep going, you know what I mean, the forge ahead motif that was a really powerful point for me that really stuck with me um
Hmm.
in this game. It's actually a very similar takeaway I had from Undertale too, but that's a different podcast for a different time.
Ooh, that is a different podcast for a different time, but probably would be a good one because Undertale is excellent. And
Yes.
yeah, just like yeah, that very very strong push to like just have hope, have faith, even in the face of certain destruction,
Hmm.
and to fight on like that. That really struck. Although like man, this game also has some just really like kind of gut wrenching moments, especially. So there was like two that like really stuck out, and it was one when it was like before Matsu like almost transformed, and then Fritra
Yeah.
and Estinian came down. I was just like, no, don't take my best boy away from me on this. Like
Oh yeah.
he was too good.
Yes.
He was too good, and I would have been really sad if he had gone. And then after you cleared the second boss in Dead Ends, and you saw that final person just like set off all of the missiles that kind of like destroyed the world, and it was just like, ugh,
Yep. Yeah.
ugh,
That really,
that
I could really feel like when he said, I killed
I
them.
killed them all.
I killed them all. And I've really, every time I see it, I always feel my heart drop. And you can feel like a kind of finality of like,
What he's done.
what the fuck? Like, I
Hmm.
just killed everyone.
Yeah. And I think that they did a really good job of demonstrating multiple examples of the way that people can lose touch with living, and with the three planets that they showed in the Dead Ends, and subsequently the other ones that were discussed in Medion's report. So, because those can all essentially, not that we're anywhere close to any of those things happening, but they're all warnings of the ways that people could lose touch with just the gift of living, and that's something that I think was really important about Hermes' question to Medion, even though it was flawed to begin with. Which shout out to Emmett Selk for like being like, "Why did you come up with that? Was a terrible idea. Did you think
Yeah,
about that before you?"
you had a flawed premise from the get-go, you
Because
moron.
he was immediately like, "Did you think at all what would happen if she didn't find what you were looking for out there? What that would do?" And Hermes was like, "Nope." And but like it's the privilege of the living to ponder the reason for living. If you're not alive, like you don't get to figure out like what's the point of living. So like that's something that's like really important like for me that I took away like from that was that like we can't ever lose sight of the gift of life to try and question the point of it. And we definitely can't make the decision about living for other people. Like that's the other thing is you can't like that, because that was obviously Medion's hubris. There was she came to the final determination that nobody actually wanted to live, so that death was the ultimate release. Which echoed 10 a lot, so I'm kind of sad that we didn't get more 10 references in the game. But yeah, so that's kind of what I was taking away from that.
Hmm. Speaking of 10 references, I was actually shocked that the anima fight was not a trial. Like, as we were going through the beginning of the story, I was just like, oh man, anima's totally going to be a trial. It's totally going to be a trial. And then, surprise, it's actually Zodiark. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And
Big
that
bait
was
and
when I was
switch
like,
there.
yeah, and then I was
Yeah,
like, oh
and I was actually
shit,
really
this means we're going to
pleased
have to
about
fight
that.
Hydaelyn.
Yeah. But I was really pleased about that kind of change. It was like, oh, we fought the Maga sisters and then we fought Anima as a dungeon boss, and it just brought to like the realization of just how crazy and fucked up things had gotten. And I
Hmm.
remember just thinking like, okay, if these are the bosses of the dungeons, what is coming next? And and then of course when you get to that point of fighting Zodiark, and then to the realization that you're going to be fighting Hydaelyn, it just it was all very heavy in my head, and I remember feeling like, well, what's gonna happen now? Like, what could possibly happen now that is, you know, worse or harder or whatever than this, you know?
Hmm.
Um, Fighting Hydaelyn, I think, was the hardest thing. I'm like even actually getting teary eyed thinking of it, because I remember throughout the entire, on the entire way of feeling doubt and questioning Hydaelyn, and I was just like, and
You
then
feel
you
bad
go
for
through the,
questioning her in the first
oh
place,
my
though.
god,
You feel so
yes,
guilty. You are her bad little spark.
yes, I felt so guilty, and I especially felt guilty, um, doing the fight and just learning about everything, and it was just like, I'm a fucking asshole. I mean, I knew I'm an asshole, but I'm really now a fucking asshole, and like, thanks Yoshida, I just killed my mom, like. And of course it's like it brings you to Smileton, and when the fucking Loporits are like, your mom's breath smells like cabbage, and it's like, fuck you, how can you say that?
It's so. It is the most brutal burn in the whole game, I must say. Although I love that, like, when you're running through Smileton and you get to the final section, it says under construction. Sorry.
Yeah, that's so good.
The Loporits. Oh god, they're like the best part about this whole X pack. I love them so much.
Yep.
I agree. I'm really happy to hear that Yoshida has gotten such a positive reaction from them, especially from the Japanese. And so I'm hoping we will continue to see more of them. I don't want them to be like a one off kind of thing. I would be so sad if we don't see them more in the future. Like,
Well, I
if
mean,
it's just, go
go
ahead.
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, well, I was
Um
gonna. I was gonna say there. Oh, god dang it, Cala, go.
okay, if it's just within that expansion within Endwalker, I'm going to be really disappointed, because I think they can do so much with them. I mean, you think about the Namazu, they were just focused in there. I mean, the Mughals were just, I mean, you really don't see them outside of, you know, Heaven's Ward and A Realm Reborn. And
Hmm.
so just to see them go beyond that would be really, really nice, because we don't really, see the Beastmen tribes elsewhere except for their specific set expansions, which is a shame, I
Right.
think.
I think you could see them like partnering up with Sid in some way, shape, or form going forward. I think that would be probably the best use for them. But it is very common for the beast tribe to kind of just fade into the background and then show up when convenient for storyline purposes. Like you saw that
Yeah.
throughout Endwalker. You got a lot of the Ixal showing up, the Pixies showing up. Like but and it was just to be like, "Oh, we're here to help the Warrior of Light," not actually really have a part of the story because our story's already been told. So now let's, push the Warrior of Light forward. Also, this just popped into my head. Remember how they released the 1.0 trailer like right before launch?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you saw that when you were lifting off in the Ragnarok, and it was like, you bastards! How dare you? How dare you pull at my emotional heartstrings like this? But I guess that was kind of the X Pack as a whole.
To
Bravo.
go back to what
Bravo.
you asked me earlier, what did I felt resonated with me the most?
Hmm.
I'd have to say watching Emmett Sulk get so annoyed and so frustrated with his friends, but still be so damn loyal and just would do anything for them even after they pestered him, and even though he's like, I don't really want to do this, it was just like,
He was such a
I feel
grumbly
you there.
butthead.
I feel you there, Emmett. Cause I go through the same thing. So yeah, I love Emmett, and I'm really sad that he's like gone forever ish. Who
Or
knows?
at least return to
Please,
the Ethereal Sea. I
yes,
feel like now that that is a avenue of storyline, that it can resurface in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Like I'm not trying to predict that that could be a thing that will happen, but if it did, I wouldn't be upset. You know,
yeah,
like bring back my old favorites, bring out the hits, but at the same time, I'm really interested to see where we go from here. And
Mm-hmm.
with 6.1 potentially getting revealed in 2 weeks, I'm hopeful, or rather on the 18th, I'm hopeful that we're gonna, finally get to see what's next.
Yeah,
And I'm sure
absolutely.
it's gonna be crazy.
well, it's definitely excited for the 24 man.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be so cool.
I'm wondering if that's what they're going to use as the vehicle to drive the story forward.
That would be interesting if it played a more central role in the story, a lot like how they ended up making the Crystal Tower a
Mm,
requisite. The
exactly.
Because the other 24 mans were just very side stories. So and
Well,
it's
that
a
was
shame that they ended up like that, but they were not crucial to the plot at all. And if myths of the realm, if that ended up playing a stronger role in the story or being the vehicle to drive the next arc of the story, I think that would make th- maybe that'll help people learn to do mechanics.
where they're forced to go through these again
Yeah. Yes.
in order to actually finish the story. I could see that being the case. That would be interesting. I was gonna say, but like the previous two raids were all like collab things, so I feel like although Void Arc wasn't part of the main story, so like I think that one's kind of the odd man out in all of this.
Yeah.
But but it's like they could go back to a collab raid in 7.0. I feel like that's a route that they could take if they wanted to, and
Yeah,
they just
I agree.
save the big super awesome story moving ones for massive shifts like this one.
Mhm. I could
I'm
see that.
sure by the time like 7.0 comes out, maybe we'll have 16, and then where the tie-in's gonna be.
Mm. Oh yeah, we have a lot of 16 information coming later this year apparently.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Yoshida, please take a break. Stop smoking cigarettes, but find some other thing to help you chill out. Protect the Yoshida at all costs.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I think with that we can wrap it up. Cala, plugs.
So you can find us on YouTube. You can also find us on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast, and I think we're still on Spotify. We might change that. I'm still thinking about it.
You're debating.
Uh, yes, I am debating. Um, you can follow us on Twitter at CTRXIV. Oh, wait, is it CTR or CT?
No, it's
It's
CT
CT.
Radio. CT
CT
Radio
Radio,
XIV.
XIV. If you want to email us with your questions, comments, concerns, praises, if you want to say that Claude is crazy, that's totally fine. Go
Yeah,
ahead
that's
and
fine.
email us at ctradioxiv@gmail.com. And that's it, I believe.
All right. Apologies for the lack of Jack. His audio setup just suddenly decided it didn't want to cooperate with on WeCaster as we are trying out this new software because Craig died, guys.
Craig
Poor
is dead.
Craig.
So we are trying desperately to find an alternative. If you can let us know how this sounds, for you, if it's better or worse than the last episode, it would be very helpful. We're trying to figure it out, and hopefully we'll come up with a resolution soon.
And with that, I think we can wrap it up. So, Cala and Claude and Jack, thank you for being here today. We will catch you all
Thank
later.
Bye.
Bye.